Welcome to the deep dive. Imagine you're just doing your usual scroll through Hacker News. Maybe it was June 17th, 2025. And suddenly this video pops up that just, well, stops you cold. You see this incredibly sleek, small rocket prototype. It launches, it hovers with this like uncanny stability. And then, get this, executes a pinpoint landing, a mere 37 centimeters from its target. Now, if you're like most people, your first thought is probably, SpaceX again.
Right.
But then you zoom in on the logo, and it's not SpaceX, it's Honda. You know, Honda, the company that makes your car, your motorcycle, maybe even your lawnmower.
Right, that image, that single video, it just grabbed the internet's attention immediately, and the reaction online was, well, pretty swift and predictable, wasn't it? Honda's joining the reusable rocket race. And it really does highlight how SpaceX has sort of democratized aerospace ambition, made these, once unimaginable feats the new benchmark. But you hit on something important there. While that rocket test was absolutely attention-grabbing, signal flare, maybe it's also potentially a misreading of Honda's much deeper, much longer-term intentions.
A misreading, okay. So what specifically about that rocket test might lead people down the wrong path? What's the common misconception we should probably clear up right away about Honda's moves here?
Well, the main misconception, I think, is assuming Honda's suddenly pivoting, that they're trying to compete head-on with companies like SpaceX for, say, launch contracts. I mean, sure, that 37-centimeter landing for a 1,300-kilo vehicle from, 271 meters, that's an incredible piece of engineering. But it's not really about becoming a rival rocket company right now. It's more a demonstration of capabilities. It's a single piece of a much larger puzzle, and frankly, part of a quieter revolution that was already well underway.
The quiet revolution. You must be talking about the HondaJet Echelon, right?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't feel like just an evolution. It seems like a really calculated leap, one that looks poised to, well, fundamentally reshape a key part of the aviation market.
Precisely. So our mission here in this deep dive is to get beyond that viral headline. We're going to try and dissect Honda's meticulous engineering philosophy, explore the unique tech advantages they have, particularly with the Echelon, and ultimately uncover their grand vision for this comprehensive, multi-domain mobility ecosystem. Because this strategy, it's going to be changing how you travel across the ground and in the air long before, I think, a Honda rocket ever reaches orbit.
Okay, let's start with the Echelon then, because it really does seem to be carving out a new category of flight. What's the core promise? What makes it such a potential game changer?
The core promise, right? And this is where it gets really interesting, especially if you follow the private aviation market. It's the Echelon's ability to fuse the capabilities of two pretty distinct aircraft classes. This jet, the HA-480 internally, is engineered to be the world's first light jet capable of flying nonstop across the United States. Transcontinental. Think about that for a second. New York to Los Angeles, nonstop in what's classified as a light jet. Historically, that kind of range, that was strictly the domain of much larger, much more expensive mid-sized jets needing two pilots.
Right. And what's the economic key here? The thing that lets it actually disrupt that market? Because fusing capabilities is one thing, but making the numbers work is another.
That's where the single pilot operation comes in. It's absolutely critical. The Echelon is designed, and it's going through certification right now for single pilot flight. So what this means is you're getting the range, you're getting the cabin experience closer to a mid-size aircraft. But with the operating economics more like a single pilot light jet, for decades you had this stark choice, right? Lower costs, but only regional range, or you pay a lot more for coast to coast. Honda is systematically just dismantling that choice. They're trying to offer the best of both.
And the specs? The numbers, they definitely seem to back this up. It's targeting an NDAA IFR range of, 2,625 nautical miles? With one pilot, 4 passengers. Max cruise speed, 450 knots, service ceiling, 47,000 feet. And that high altitude isn't just for show, right? It means flying above most weather, most commercial traffic.
Yeah.
Smoother flights, more direct, more efficient. And the market seems to be saying, yes, please. They've apparently secured almost 500 letters of intent before the first test aircraft is even flown. That first flight is planned for 2026, I think, with type certification targeted for 2028.
Yeah, that's the timeline. They've already started producing the wing structure, too, started back in early 2025.
So achieving this mixed range efficiency, single pilot capability,
Yeah.
it wasn't just tweaking an old design, was it?
No, not at all. This is a clean sheet aircraft, completely new. It uses two Williams International FJ44 4C turbofans. That's actually a departure from their smaller jets, which use GE Honda engines.
Yeah.
These deliver significantly more thrust. And the fuselage, which Spirit AeroSystems is building, is mostly carbon fiber composites. That material choice is fundamental. It allows for a lighter structure, a stronger structure, which is key for fuel efficiency. And it also gives the engineers freedom, to craft that really unique ellipsoid cabin shape.
Yeah, that ellipsoid shape. Definitely looks like it maximizes headroom and shoulder room without making the plane seem bulky. That's a big plus for passenger comfort.
Yeah.
But what really enables that single pilot, maybe 7-hour transcontinental flight safely, what's happening up front in the cockpit.
Okay, the cockpit. That's where you see another major leap, this time in avionics. It's equipped with the Garmin G3000 integrated flight deck. Think of it almost like a virtual co-pilot. It's packed with automation features designed to seriously reduce pilot workload and enhance safety. We're talking auto throttle, auto brake, even an emergency auto land system.
Auto land. Wow.
Yeah, it can autonomously control and land the aircraft if the pilot becomes incapacitated. Just push a button. Plus, it has things like a runway overrun awareness and alerting system, advanced steering augmentation. This whole suite, it doesn't replace the pilot, obviously, but it empowers them. It makes these long, single-pilot missions feasible and demonstrably safe.
But the tech that everyone points to, the single most important piece enabling the Echelon sort of category-defying performance, and that's Honda's patented over-the-wing engine mount, right? OTWEM? I remember OTWEM being a huge deal for the original HondaJet. How has its importance evolved? Is it even more critical for the Echelon? What was the old thinking it challenged? And how did Fujino-san, the designer, actually manage to flip that idea?
That's a great question because OTWEM really is Honda's signature innovation. It's like their technological moat. And it took decades of really patient research. For years, decades really, the conventional wisdom in aerospace circles was just, don't put engines on top of the wing. The thinking was it would disrupt airflow, create drag, just be inefficient.
Made sense intuitively, I suppose.
Right. But Michimasa Fujino, the lead designer, he hypothesized that maybe, just maybe, a precise placement could actually work differently. Not just minimize the interference, but maybe even turn it into an advantage. So through years of painstaking work, computational fluid dynamics, endless wind tunnel testing, he discovered the sweet spot. By positioning the engines just right, the airflow over the wing interacts or combines with the airflow around the engine nacelles in this very specific, unique way. And this interaction, it actually delays the onset of high-speed shock waves on the wing. That reduces wave drag.
So less drag at cruise speeds.
Exactly. It improves aerodynamic efficiency at typical cruise speeds. This patented breakthrough allows the Echelon to fly faster and use less fuel doing it.
And the payoff seems like a trifecta. More space inside, less noise, and better aerodynamics.
Yeah.
Because the engines aren't stuck on the back of the fuselage, right? So you don't need those heavy, intrusive support structures cutting into the cabin.
Precisely.
Which means a taller cabin, more spacious overall, a fully private lavatory, no more awkward shuffling. And this huge baggage compartment, 120 cubic feet. That's nearly double some competitors.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone who's ever tried to pack for a week-long trip in a light jet, that alone is a game changer. And for passengers, less engine noise and vibration getting into the cabin means a much more comfortable flight, especially for 6 or 7 hours.
And aerodynamically, you combine OTWEM with the Echelon's natural laminar flow wing design, and you get a highly efficient package overall. Honda projects it will be up to 20% more fuel efficient than its light jet competitors, and maybe over 40% more fuel efficient than the mid-sized jets it's competing with on range. This isn't just about building a new product. It really feels like a physical manifestation of a long-term R&D-driven corporate philosophy. OTWEM wasn't some quick fix. It was decades of fundamental research. It really showcases Honda's willingness to invest patient capital for these potentially game-changing payoffs.
Okay, so with all this innovation, how does this new kid on the block actually stack up against the established players?
Yeah.
The Echelon isn't just, sliding into an existing market slot. It seems poised to disrupt things. Let's look at the incumbents. You've got the Cessna Citation CJ4. That's kind of the quintessential American workhorse, right? Known for reliability. Textron's big global service network.
Yep, the reliable choice.
Then there's the Embraer Phenom 300E. Brazilian powerhouse, bestseller in its class for over a decade now. Fleets love it for speed and efficiency.
Hugely popular, especially with fractional operators.
And finally, the Pilatus PC-24, the super versatile jet from Switzerland. Unique because it can operate from short, even unpaved runways. Big cargo door, rugged gear.
The off-road jet, almost.
So when you put them side by side, head to head on the numbers, the Echelon strategy becomes pretty clear, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. It's not trying to be the absolute fastest. The Phenom 300E probably still holds that crown. And it's not aiming for the shortest takeoff distance. The PC-24 wins there with its specific mission profile. Instead, Honda seems to have focused, like a laser, on three key areas: range, cabin comfort, and baggage volume, all while keeping the price competitive.
And the most striking number on that comparison chart has got to be the range. 2,625 nautical miles for the Echelon. That's a massive advantage. Over 460 nautical miles more than the CJ4, and over 600 more than the Phenom 300E and the PC-24.
Huge.
In practical terms, that's the difference between a guaranteed nonstop flight, say Miami to Seattle, and one that might need a fuel stop depending on winds. It just fundamentally changes the mission profile for the aircraft. And like we mentioned, OTWEM pays off again with that enormous 120 cubic foot baggage hold. That's, what, 55% larger than the CJ4s.
And it all comes back to that core argument. Mid-size capabilities, but at light jet operating costs.
Yeah.
That single pilot certification is just huge for saving on crew costs, salaries, training, scheduling complexity, and price-wise estimated between maybe $10 to $12 million. It slots right in against the Phenom 300E, which is around $11.5 million, and the CJ4 Gen 2, around $11.8 million. So for a similar purchase price, you're getting significantly more range and volume. That makes it an extraordinary value proposition on paper.
That does sound like a compelling value prop, but is it truly a game changer, or are we maybe overstating the impact a bit? What are the biggest hurdles the Echelon still needs to clear to really reshape this market, and how do you think the competition will respond?
Oh, I think it's absolutely a game changer for the specific segment it's targeting. No doubt about that. The biggest hurdle, honestly, it's always execution. Achieving that type certification on schedule targeting 2028 and then successfully ramping up production and delivery, that's always tough. But given Honda's manufacturing history, they tend to be very methodical, very deliberate. As for the competition, well, they can't just copy OTWEM. Like we said, it took Honda decades and probably billions to perfect that technology. It's patented heavily, so we'll likely see a market response where competitors lean into their existing strengths and might lead to a bit of a market bifurcation.
How so?
Well, Cessna will probably double down on its massive global service network, its reputation for reliability, maybe focus on upgrades for the existing fleet. Embraer will leverage its bestseller status, its deep relationships with large fleet operators, perhaps focusing on cabin tech or minor performance tweaks. And Pilatus. They'll keep emphasizing that unique selling point, the ability to access thousands of remote, rugged airfields that other jets simply can't touch. They'll play to their niche.
That makes sense. So leaning into their established identities. This market dynamic also has an interesting side effect, doesn't it? The Echelon's identity as a long-haul aircraft, where flights can last up to 7 hours, that makes high-speed, reliable in-flight connectivity almost a must-have, not just a nice-to-have.
You're absolutely right. That's a key point. As Honda inevitably markets the Echelon bundled with top-tier SATCOM solutions, think Starlink Aviation or similar high-bandwidth options, it's going to raise the baseline expectation for connectivity across the entire business jet industry. Customers spending millions on any new jet will start demanding that level of performance even on shorter-range aircraft. So it forces all manufacturers, Cessna, Embraer, everyone, to accelerate their adoption of next-gen connectivity solutions. So yeah, it's not just disrupting the aircraft market itself, but also pushing the standards for the whole in-flight experience forward.
Okay, let's circle back then to where we started that rocket. The successful test, that little hop, it inevitably sparked all those comparisons to SpaceX, but as we've kind of established, they aren't really direct competitors in the traditional launch market sense, at least not yet. So what is the primary goal of Honda's rocket test? How does it genuinely fit into their broader, longer-term strategy?
The primary goal for Honda's reusable rocket program, as I see it, is really about mastering a suite of core technologies. Foundational stuff. Things like reusable liquid fuel propulsion systems, precision autonomous guidance, that 37-centimeter landing speaks volumes there, and lightweight structure manufacturing. This isn't really about launching commercial satellites by 2029, I don't think. That seems ambitious. Instead, the expertise they gain here, it will likely feed directly into their other advanced projects. Think their eVTOL aircraft development, next-generation aviation concepts, even those ambitious space-based systems like their lunar fuel cell project with JXA. It feels very much like the Honda way in action. You know, a deliberate, incremental, step-by-step approach. Build foundational understanding, minimize risk at each stage, just like they did over decades developing OTWEM for their jets.
So if Honda isn't trying to out SpaceX, what's the sort of philosophical difference? What's the chasm between how these two companies approach innovation and execution?
That's where the contrast is really stark, I think. SpaceX is the archetype of first principles disruption, right? They famously manufacture an estimated 80% of components in-house. They embrace very public iteration, rapid prototyping, even spectacular failures, rapid unscheduled disassemblies, as they call them, as learning opportunities. They move at breakneck speed, funded significantly by venture capital initially, now large government contracts, and driven by this huge, almost singular goal of making humanity multiplanetary.
Right, the Mars vision.
Exactly. Honda, on the other hand, is more the incremental perfection industrial giant. They leverage a vast global network of specialized, best-in-class partners for key components, focusing on integrating that expertise with their own quality control. Their core competency is arguably mass production, quality control, legendary reliability. Think of their automotive reputation. They prioritize risk aversion, exhaustive private testing. Failures are seen as something to be rigorously analyzed and avoided before anything goes public. And Honda's long-term vision, while ambitious, seems focused on a comprehensive mobility ecosystem: ground, air, near space, not necessarily multiplanetary colonization.
That's a really useful distinction. So Honda's entry into reusable rocket tech isn't maybe a direct threat to SpaceX's current dominance in launch, but it's more like a powerful validation of the entire market that SpaceX essentially created. What does that signal for the future of getting things and maybe people into space?
I think it signals quite clearly that reusability is the undisputed future standard for space access. No one is designing big expendable rockets anymore, not seriously for the long term. Honda's investment, coming from such a large, established industrial player, suggests a future where the launch market becomes more diverse, more resilient, maybe more specialized. SpaceX kicked the door open, proved the concept, scaled it incredibly fast. Now, players like Honda, maybe others down the line, can potentially enter as industrializers. They can bring their deep expertise in mass manufacturing, supply chain management, reliability engineering, process control to help mature the technology further. In the long run, you could envision a market where SpaceX remains the cutting-edge innovator, pushing boundaries, while maybe a future Honda launch service, if it materializes, could become the reliable, boring, predictable choice. Perhaps for high-value, sensitive payloads where methodical reliability is absolutely paramount over, say, lowest cost per kilo.
Interesting. The Toyota Camry of rockets, maybe.
Perhaps. And ultimately, you have to remember, Honda's aerospace ventures, from the Echelon right up to the rocket, they're also a strategic defense of their core automotive business. Think about it. As cars become more connected, more autonomous, they rely heavily on satellite-based data, navigation, communication. Having some influence, maybe even control over parts of that sky infrastructure could become a significant competitive advantage down the road. So it's about securing their future on the ground just as much as it is about conquering new frontiers in the air and space.
Okay, this brings us nicely to the grand strategy then. Realizing this whole Honda in the sky vision. That rocket hop we saw, the Echelon jet taking shape, their eVTOL concepts, the Lunar Energy Project. These aren't just random darts thrown at a board, are they? They seem like interconnected pieces of a single, coherent, and frankly breathtakingly ambitious plan. A plan to transform Honda from primarily a car and motorcycle company into something much broader, a comprehensive multi-domain mobility provider. As their CEO apparently put it, they want aviation to become so central that people might someday say, oh yeah, Honda used to be a car and motorcycle company.
Exactly. It's all about creating a seamless mobility ecosystem. That seems to be the goal. It starts, obviously, with ground mobility, their existing strength in cars and motorcycles. Then you add the layer of urban air mobility. That's where their eVTOL aircraft concepts fit in. Designed for short-range, intercity, or intracity travel. And they're leveraging their expertise there, too. Electrification from cars, lightweight materials, maybe even aerodynamics know-how from their F1 program. Interestingly, their current public concept uses a more practical gas turbine electric hybrid power unit. It acknowledges the current limitations of battery energy density for meaningful range and payload, prioritizing practicality over being purely electric right now.
A pragmatic approach.
Yeah. Above that, you've got regional and transcontinental air mobility. That's the HondaJet Elite Second covering the very light jet segment, and now the Echelon bridging that crucial gap to mid-size range and capability. And then finally, the most forward-looking layer, orbital and cislunar mobility. That's where the reusable rocket R&D fits. And also their collaboration with JAXA, Japan's space agency, and Sierra Space. They're working together to develop and test a regenerative fuel cell system actually on the International Space Station right now. And that system is explicitly designed with an eye towards supporting sustained human presence on the moon. Power generation in space. It really does feel like one Honda, with different divisions contributing pieces to this larger mobility picture.
It's a huge vision, but is it really underpinned by a sound business case? Or is there a risk of, overambition, spreading themselves too thin? How do all these different pieces, jets, eVTOLs, rockets, fuel cells, actually contribute, or how are they planned to contribute to Honda's bottom line?
That's the critical question, isn't it? Is the strategy sound financially? I think this grand vision isn't just about cool hardware. It's also a strategic response to what many see as existential threats to the traditional automotive industry model. In a future potentially dominated by mobility as a service platforms, autonomous systems, maybe shared ownership, the old business model of simply selling individual vehicles might be under pressure.
Right. People might buy miles, not cars.
Exactly. So, by creating an integrated hardware and software ecosystem that spans ground and air travel, Honda seems to be aiming to own the entire customer journey, or at least larger parts of it. Imagine booking a seamless trip through a Honda app. Maybe an autonomous Honda car picks you up, takes you to a local vertiport, you hop on a Honda eVTOL to a regional airport, and then board a HondaJet Echelon for the long-haul leg. This transforms Honda from just a vehicle seller into a comprehensive mobility service provider. It makes their platform potentially much stickier for consumers. The Echelon itself is clearly designed to be a powerful economic engine within this strategy. Its unique selling proposition, that single-pilot transcontinental capability, dramatically lowers the cost barrier for certain types of private air travel. It could pull buyers up from traditional light jets needing more range, pull buyers down from more expensive mid-size jets, and potentially even attract brand-new first-time buyers to private aviation. Those nearly 500 letters of intent certainly suggest strong market demand exists for that specific capability set.
And it also hedges against the pilot shortage.
Absolutely, that's a huge factor. The global pilot shortage is a growing concern, especially for business aviation. Aircraft that can be safely and efficiently operated by a single pilot become inherently more valuable and economical, particularly for large charter and fractional fleet operators who manage large pilot pools. And finally, there's the environmental sustainability angle, which is increasingly important. The Echelon's claimed fuel efficiency 20% better than competing light jets, 40% better than mid-sized jets on similar missions isn't just a side benefit, it's marketed as a core feature. That translates directly to lower operating costs for owners, which is always appealing, but also builds a stronger brand image in an environmentally conscious world. And you have to connect this to Honda's deep investment in hydrogen fuel cell technology, primarily for automotive and stationary power right now.
Ah, hydrogen piece.
Yeah, that feels like the hidden linchpin, potentially. It suggests a possible long-term roadmap where maybe those gas turbines and the eVTOL concept could eventually be replaced by zero-emission hydrogen fuel cells, offering a unique sustainable advantage down the line.
So when we step back and look at Honda's strategic move into aerospace, it really does look like a masterclass in long-term industrial strategy. It doesn't feel opportunistic or reactive. It seems like a patient, multi-decade R&D heavy plan. A plan to secure the company's future by becoming a dominant player across multiple mobility domains. That rocket test grabbed the headline, sure. The Echelon jet is the tangible proof right now of their ability to disrupt established markets. And the eVTOL and space projects. They look like the next carefully planned chapters in this unfolding story.
Yeah, and while the tech world often gets really captivated by, the spectacular leaps, the rapid-fire innovations we see elsewhere, Honda is demonstrating the formidable power of a different approach, a quieter, more methodical one. They seem to be patiently, deliberately building this staircase to the sky, with each step meticulously engineered for reliability, for efficiency, for long-term value. In an industry often defined by sprints and splashy announcements, Honda's kind of proving the enduring strength of running a marathon.
Which really raises an important question for you, the listener, to think about. What will the world of mobility look like once Honda has fully arrived? Once they've integrated this ambitious vision across ground, air, and maybe even near space? It's a powerful reminder, I think, that there's often more than one path to shaping the future.
And if you want to track this ascent, keep an eye on a few key milestones coming up. First, 2026. That's the plan for the first flight of the HondaJet Echelon. That will be a crucial validation point. Then 2028, the target year for the Echelon's type certification and its uptree into service, when customers actually start flying it. Looking further out, 2029, that's their ambitious goal for a suborbital test flight of their reusable rocket prototype. Achieving that would signal real maturity in their core spaceflight technologies. And of course, keep watching for ongoing developments with their eVTOL concepts and for the results coming back from testing that regenerative fuel cell system up on the ISS. That could be key for their longer-term space ambitions.